I did some pretty bold things musically. I mean, I recorded with...
I just wanted to sing stuff that was really meaningful to me. I wanted to claim that part of my father.
Picture a dim rehearsal room on Sunset Boulevard. Its plaster cracked like an old LP sleeve and the wooden floor still humming from the nightclub downstairs. Walls once papered with neon-bright flyers now fade into ghostly pastels, each poster bragging about a night when somebody swore rock and roll would change forever. In the center of that quiet shrine stands Linda Ronstadt, the voice that once ricocheted off those same walls hard enough to launch a lifetime of sold-out arenas. She runs a fingertip along the leather spine of a slim notebook as though tuning a forgotten instrument. Traffic lights beyond the window cycle from green to yellow to existential red, while tourists photograph a chipped star on the Walk of Fame. None of them knows the price of a platinum record, the friendships dented, the dignity pawned off an inch at a time. Tonight she is done paying interest on other people's debts. She flips the cover, lets pages whisper open, settles beneath a fickle bulb and inhales like a diver about to break the surface. 7 names stare back, each ink stroke darker than memory, and she decides it is finally time to speak them aloud. The first blast of recollection smells like dust, cologne, and stadium pyro. Don Henley was merely the hungry kid behind Linda's drum kit in 1971, hauling snares through back doors while she headlined county fairs. She liked his dry wit and steady pocket, so she let him crash on tour buses and sweet-talked promoters into paying him better than scale. Fast forward 4 years, the Eagles were chart gods, and Henley's gratitude had molted into canyon-wide swagger. Backstage at the Universal Amphitheater, a reporter asked whether he owed Linda a nod for his break. He chuckled, said success was inevitable, then strolled off to a waiting stretch limo. It all detonated one humid August night when he arrived late, sunglasses on indoors, flanked by handlers who called him the maestro. He barged into Linda's dressing room, propped his boots on her coffee table, bragged about leasing a jet, and tossed a crumpled backstage pass onto her vanity with a lazy, "Won't need this anymore." The gesture, half dismissal, half declaration, hit Linda like a snare crack. She revoked his credentials on the spot, watched security escort him out, and vowed generosity would never again be confused with a footstool. But bruised trust was merely the first verse. Flashback 7 years earlier to the Whiskey A Go-Go's cramped after-party lounge, where Jim Morrison, equal parts poetry and peril, was letting bourbon blur the edges of reality. Linda, only months into Los Angeles life, was laughing with a session guitarist when Morrison barreled in, hooked an arm around her waist, and dragged her onto a makeshift stage. He tried to land a sloppy kiss. She twisted free, he slipped, crashed into a cymbal stand, and sent hush rippling through the room. Rumor later claimed Morrison had bet a roadie he could steal any spotlight in 60 seconds. Linda, however, was not a spotlight to be stolen. She was the generator powering half the strip. As security steadied gear, she seized the knocked-over mic and belted an a cappella verse that sliced the hush like moonlight through blinds. Startled guests erupted in cheers, half in relief, half in awe. Morrison lurched away muttering, and months later mocked her on radio as sweet but spineless. Linda never clapped back publicly, but in private she labeled him a brilliant wreck who poisoned everything he touched. Still, that reckless grab was only the next crack in her armor. Dusty fairgrounds near San Jose framed 1976's United Farm Workers benefit, an occasion Linda joined for free, even booking her own flights so the charity kept more cash. During rehearsal, Neil Young bristled when she suggested layering harmonies behind his folk rock anthem. "Too polished for protest," he snarled. Minutes before showtime, he swapped set order without warning, forcing her quiet ballad to follow his blistering guitar solo. She delivered anyway, voice steady as steel, but afterward Young told a columnist she wasn't built for the fight. The phrase ricocheted across newsprint and gouged deeper than any critic's jab. Later, alone in her motel, she scribbled that rage could be recycled into arrangements and vowed to outsell doubters without raising her voice above mezzo forte. Even that resolve would meet fresh strain when genius turned cruel in the confines of a studio. Hollywood, 1974. Frank Zappa's sessions were legendary for veering from chaos to cosmic in 2 beats. Linda arrived eager, believing their talents might ignite a boundary-shattering single. Halfway through a take, Zappa froze the band, exhaled smoke, and announced into a hot mic, "Real music dies when it lands in a serial commercial voice." Musicians stared at their shoes, unsure whether to defend her or keep their gigs. The studio's air felt thick enough to record. Linda's cheeks flamed, but her spine stayed straight. She thanked the trumpeter, gathered lyric sheets, and glided out, heels clicking like a metronome set to dignity. That night she mailed Zappa a cordial note releasing the track to him outright. She never stepped into his orbit again. Bohemian heaven soured into battlefield next. In Laurel Canyon, David Crosby and Linda once harmonized around sun-dappled campfires, dreaming of records that would rewrite American sound. By 1978, they collided during a vocal session when she requested a key change. Crosby scoffed, claiming she should bend to the song. They argued, he stormed out, and Rolling Stone soon printed his jab calling her manufactured. Loyal band members scratched Crosby tunes from warm-up playlists. A guitarist even lost his spot for slipping a Byrds riff into a solo. Years later, Crosby admitted he'd been half pickled, half jealous. But the apology arrived long after Linda had encoded a new rule. Nostalgia cannot vaccinate anyone from betrayal. Cleveland, 1979. Rain hammered fairground roofs while reporters clustered around Elvis Costello, punk's razor-tongued prodigy. After Linda's headlining set, he quipped that her songs belonged somewhere between Eggs Benedict and the Second Mimosa. The barb hit news wires before her final chord faded. She confronted him, soaked from a dash between trailers. Costello, glassy-eyed, doubled down and strutted away. She didn't counterpunch in print. She tightened rehearsals instead and opened her next tour with a rock medley that left no room for brunch analogies. At the end of show 1, she gazed into the spotlight's fierce white core and deadpanned, "Order up," a sly retort only insiders caught. Ticket sales spiked anyway. Potential harmony disguised the deepest cut. In 1982, Paul Simon summoned Linda to New York's power station to duet on a wistful ballad critics preordained a classic. Day 1 shimmered with promise. Day 2, Simon began corralling syllables, lowering her mic for blend, rewriting choruses overnight. By day 3, he proposed swapping her soaring bridge for a whistled solo. Realization dawned. Collaboration had morphed into colonization. She packed her bag, told the engineer, "Print whatever you want, but my name isn't landing on it," and left in a yellow cab idling by the freight elevator. On the receipt, she jotted a fresh chorus that became her next platinum single. Simon filled the vacancy with backup singers and never spoke of the session publicly. Back in the rehearsal room, Linda tells the podcast host that unlocking these memories feels like opening a sealed-up vocal booth to air. Henley proved generosity can be mistaken for a ladder. Morrison warned that charisma without respect is just noise in sequins. Young showed activism mangled by ego sings off-key. Zappa demonstrated brilliance can curdle when it forgets its audience. Crosby illustrated that familiarity breeds contempt faster than fame. Costello taught her that irony without empathy is just a sharper dagger. Simon reminded her no amount of craft excuses, condescension. She adds that silence once served strategy. During the 70s, women who complained were labeled difficult while men were called passionate. Success shielded her, but unspoken stories tug at their locks, and armor grows heavy after decades of touring. Sharing now, she insists, is not vengeance but release, a way to tell younger artists, especially young women, that even towering voices get told to sing smaller, and the real trick is refusing to shrink. She closes the notebook, its pages aired out like old vinyl sleeves, and rests it on a piano bench. The host asks what she hopes listeners will carry away. She taps a slow, eighth-note rhythm on the wood and answers, "Guard your melody. The world will try to remix you, sometimes gently, sometimes with a sledgehammer. Protect the part only you can sing. Outside, night air tingles with jasmine drifting from a courtyard and exhaust from tour buses idling at the curb. Somewhere down the block, a cover band bungles one of her early hits, missing half the harmonies but nailing the intent. Linda flips her collar against the chill, slides into a rideshare, and when the driver, oblivious to the history in his back seat, asks whether rehearsal went well, she grins. "Best of my life," she says, "because any night you trade silence for truth counts as a headline gig." As the car merges onto the boulevard, neon shivers across the windshield, and Linda hums a brand new tune no one has heard, yet the refrain already sounds like freedom. The rideshare's stereo crackles with a modern remix that chops and pitches one of Linda's old vocal runs into a shimmering hook, and she can't help smiling at the alchemy of hearing her 20s fold into someone else's tomorrow. She asks the driver to turn it up. As the bass line throbs beneath glass panel billboards, another memory blooms, this one softer, smaller, almost missed. In 1973, at a Texas Jamboree broadcast rushed out between commercials for truck tires and barbecue sauce, she and a lanky newcomer named Graham Parsons rehearsed a duet that never made air when the producers panicked at his tempo changes. Parsons later swore the lost arrangement was her most soulful country moment. Hearing the sample tonight, Linda wonders if some part of that vanished melody secretly survived, spliced and resold to an audience hungry for moonlit nostalgia. Red light, a mural of colossal angel wings flickers by, and Linda wonders whether grace can be taught or only earned. Young singers slide into her messages daily, some confident, some shaking, asking how to dodge the traps she barely survived. She writes back when she can, saving template responses that read less like boilerplate and more like roadside flares. Know your terms before you sign. Measure every compliment twice. Never perform to silence the critics. Perform to feed the soul inside your ribs. Tonight's podcast will likely triple her inbox, but she's ready. Every desperate question from an emerging artist is a flashlight aimed at an old bruise she can finally map for someone else's benefit. Capitol Records' spaceship silhouette pivots past the windshield. She once climbed its rooftop for fresh air between overdubs, determined to hear the city instead of another playback. The horizon had gleamed like a million unmade promises, and she swore to outlast whichever trend the suit said would kill her next. That promise held. Disco crashed, hair metal flared, algorithms arrived, and still her voice streams to fans not yet born when reel-to-reel ruled studios. Longevity, she concludes, is curiosity stretched across decades like a power cord that refuses to fade. The driver apologizes for an upcoming detour around construction. Linda waves it off. Detours taught her half her catalog. The car snakes down side streets lined with jacarandas dropping purple petals like confetti. She recalls an unplanned scenic route in 1975 when a wrong turn in Albuquerque landed her at a roadhouse where a Navajo trio played a haunting 6/8 lament. She spent 2 hours listening, scribbling rhythmic patterns on napkins, and years later that cadence underpinned the bridge of a Grammy-winning ballad. Detours, she decides, are maps written in invisible ink, useless until you tilt life at the right angle. Another ping on her phone, an article already hyping Ronstadt's explosive confessions. She snorts. Viewers crave fireworks even when the sound is really an overdue thunderclap rolling across decades. She considers posting clarification, then pockets the phone. Let the episode breathe. Headlines evaporate, but story lives in the marrow. The ride slides to the curb beside a bungalow blanketed in bougainvillea. Before exiting, she thanks the driver for the music. He admits he never realized the sample came from his passenger. Linda laughs, a clear alto riff that turns strangers into pals, and says, "That's why we keep listening. There's always a secret on the next track." His grin mirrors a child finding the hidden track at the end of a CD. Inside, the living room moonlights as a studio. Condenser mic, interface, battered Martin acoustic. She brews chamomile, sets the leather notebook on a shelf, and pulls a fresh spiral pad from her tote. On page 1, she writes a working title, Lessons the Stage Whispered. Bullet points unfurl. Generosity has a perimeter. Stubborn doors need kinder keys. Silence is a tool, not a prison. Each jot sprouts memory vines, whose fruit could fill whole chapters. Maybe this turns into a memoir, maybe a masterclass. Either way, writing feels lighter than guarding secrets. Steam twirls above the mug. She remembers Don Henley's surprise package in 1990, a gold-plated tambourine engraved, "Thank you for the runway." She kept it, but never replied. Some bridges look prettier uncrossed. Elvis Costello phoned in 2004, sober and contrite, hoping she'd duet on a tribute album. She declined, yet wished him well. Growth sometimes means refusing to reopen healed fractures. Headphones on, she records a spoken intro for tomorrow's live stream. Every note tonight comes from places I once sealed away. If you're carrying unspoken verses, let this music pry the lid. Her voice vibrates through the pop filter like warm cedar. A text arrives from veteran producer Peter Asher. Heard you're exporting brutal honesty. Need a roadie for that cargo? She thumbs back. Honesty travels hand carry, no excess baggage fee. Even in jokes, she edits cadence. Midnight brushes the window. She strums different drum, altering the last note downward so it sighs contentedly. Evolution protects songs from museum glass. After a final chord, she secures the guitar, dims lights, and walks the hall past framed records and that gilded tambourine. She lifts it, gives a gentle shake. The jingle feels like encore applause and playground laughter stitched together by time. Objects can carry warning and forgiveness simultaneously. Under quilt, she reviews tomorrow's set list mentally, weaving short dedications. A nod to farm worker rights before Blue Bayou, a salute to Janice before Poor Pitiful Me, a thanks to every bedroom singer chasing their first upload. She leaves space for improvisation, after all. Music breathes between the measures. Sleep drifts in on commuter hush and far-off sirens. In the lucid drift, she imagines the live stream's patchwork audience, a nurse in Manila humming along while charting vitals, a retiree in Dublin tapping foot against parquet, a teenager in Rio blasting the show to drown heartbreak. She hopes each hears proof that even battered melodies can heal crowds of strangers. Morning promises rehearsals, tweets scheduled by interns, and critics ready to dissect her revelations. Let them. No review can eclipse a well-placed high C. When camera lights wink green and viewer counts climb, she'll inhale, plant feet, and release a note built from every detour, insult, apology, and silent vow. It will ride the fiber-optic highways like a flare, lighting the way for anyone who's ever wondered whether their melody matters. In that imagined moment, she pictures the camera pulling back, revealing not a solitary diva but a relay runner extending the baton of experience. She sees public school music teachers replaying clips the next morning to prove to students that history doesn't only sit in dusty textbooks. It sings forward, gathering harmonies across generations. She sees baristas closing a cafe, streaming the concert from a phone balanced on the espresso machine, sketching microfoam portraits of her younger self while the headset mic crackles with final orders. She sees an indie producer in Lagos sampling a trumpet line from her bolero and grafting it onto an Afro-electro beat that will make teenagers dance on another continent. She sees a trucker somewhere on I-70 who hasn't spoken to anyone all shift, letting her ballad fill the cab like company. She sees a choir of retirees in Auckland printing her lyrics in large type, so cataracts can't steal the joy of sing-along Fridays. She sees a single mother in Detroit rewinding the last chorus to convince her daughter that powerful doesn't mean perfect. In every vision, the same truth reverberates. Resonance outlives fashion, and hope spreads outward like ripples on water, relentless and widening.